Chapter 1. Are you sure this is the right email? Holland squinted as she stared at the message in her drafts folder. She was trying to sound professional so that Cassie could save face. This was definitely not the right email, and it was not the right time to be making mistakes like this. It's the right one, Cassie said. I promise. The marketing specialist nodded emphatically. Her blonde curls bounced, emphasizing the youthfulness in her face. Oh, to have skin as smooth as hers. Holland was only a couple of years older than Cassie, but sometimes she felt like there was a lifetime that stretched between them. Really? Holland shook her head. I don't think so. We were going to swap the images, remember? She pointed at the picture of the building's exterior, the one that was recently remodeled. We wanted to get a picture of Julian, because there was no point in sending out an email to potential investors if they couldn't actually see the CEO of Scarlett and Rose. Julian was reclusive, sure, but he needed to get over that in a bad way. Oh, Cassie shook her head. We both know that's not going to happen, right? What? Mr. Deskovich isn't going to let you take a picture. Everyone keeps saying that, Holland said. Because he's never in the history of time taken a picture? He won't even come to the company events, Cassie said. I don't understand why he wouldn't come. It doesn't matter whether you understand or not. It matters that you do your job, Cassie said. Holland frowned. Julian was elusive at best and annoying at worst. Why he insisted on hiding himself away in his office all of the time, Holland didn't know. Honestly, she didn't want to know. Excuse me? You heard me. Cassie crossed her arms. Look, I'm not trying to sound like I'm being difficult to work with or anything, but I've been on the marketing team for a long time. You have too, Halls. Holland hated when people shortened her name. And you know that this is one of his big things. Unfortunately, that just wasn't going to work for Holland. Not this time. She knew that this was her chance to make a name for herself. She'd been at Scarlett and Rose for months now. No, more than months, a year. When she started, she'd been titled a specialist, just like Cassie. Only Holland worked twice as hard, and she was twice as strategic. What she really wanted was a better, different title. She wanted to be recognized for all of the hard work she did here, for all of the contributions she made. Why couldn't Julian see that she was good at what she did? The problem, she knew, was that getting in front of the CEO of a huge company wasn't exactly an easy feat for most people. Holland wasn't most people, though. Holland was in marketing. She frowned as Cassie droned on and on. Finally, Cassie left, and Holland stared at the email for a few more minutes. It really did look terrible with that image of the building. Fuck it, she said. She sent a message to Julian through the company's in-house messaging platform. His status was set to busy, but he read it right away. He didn't reply, which wasn't unusual for the executive team, but somehow the snub hit Holland personally. She glared at the computer, stood up, and marched to the hallway adjacent to where she sat in a row of cubicles. Scarlett and Rose said they cared a lot about company culture, which meant all of the cubicles were state-of-the-art. At least, they were as state-of-the-art as a cubicle could be. Hers was decorated with pink and green. Holland liked plants, and she liked frogs, and she liked kitty cats. She had a stuffed pink frog that sat next to her monitors, plus an assortment of small Lego bees. While many of her colleagues didn't like to decorate, citing concerns about ending up with desks that looked too messy, Holland knew that if she was going to spend so much of her life at the office that she needed to feel like she could be herself. She needed to feel comfortable. The company wasn't exactly a remote-first organization, which meant Holland was in the office day after day after day, and she was tired. What she wanted more than anything else was an opportunity to just be. She wanted the chance to just be herself, do her little tasks, get credit for them, and go home. She had a stack of romance books with her name on them, and that pile was growing higher every day. She marched to the elevator. Their office had just one building, which was fine, except for the fact that it had 15 floors. When Holland first started, she would take the stairs 2 at a time to work, hurrying up to her meetings. She stared out of the window of the glass elevator as it rose up, up, up. She pressed her hand to the glass, even though it would leave a little smudge that Helena would have to clean up later. Holland tried not to make trouble for anyone else, but sometimes she couldn't help it. This was the part she loved. This was why she'd come to Rose Valley. She'd come here because she needed something new, something fresh, something that was hers and hers alone. When she left Clearwater Cove, it was because she needed a change. Mom and Rob had turned their backs on her over and over again. It had gotten to the point where she couldn't do anything right, even when she tried. After Holland graduated from the local university with a 4.0 GPA and nothing to show for it but childhood trauma, she wondered if she'd ever leave Clearwater. For several years after graduation, she made do by working odd jobs around town. She worked at the gas station and substitute taught the elementary school. She was certain she'd die of boredom before her 30th birthday. But then Holland had seen the job opportunity. She'd applied on a whim, never thinking she'd be chosen, but she had. She'd traveled to Rose Valley the very next week for an in-person interview. The rest was history. The elevator dinged, letting her know it was time to step out and step up. Holland stepped out into the empty space in front of the elevator. The 2-bank elevators were most typically used by guests. Long-term employees preferred the 4-bank set on the opposite end of the building because they were faster and came more frequently than these ones. She paused at the glass table across from the elevators. A large painting rested on the wall in lieu of a mirror. Annoying. Holland wanted to check her hair and make sure she didn't have lipstick in her teeth. Fortunately, she had her phone, so she used her camera to check. Then she headed down to the hall to the right of the elevators. Mr. Deskovich's office was directly across from Stephanie's. She was a tall, lanky woman who looked like she was about 1,000 years old. Julian couldn't be older than his late 30s or early 40s, wildly young for a CEO. So Holland didn't get where the weird protective instinct seemed to come from. Why was Stephanie so invested in keeping people away from Julian? Yes, part of her job was to keep him organized, but she was super annoying about it. Maybe Stephanie secretly harbored some sort of romantic flame for Julian. Holland didn't know. Julian's door was closed when Holland reached it, but Stephanie's was wide open. Holland tried to step past Stephanie's space without being noticed, but it was no use. "Can I help you?" Stephanie was in her doorway a second later. "Can I help you with something?" No," Holland said, waving her hand. She took in Stephanie's perfect appearance. Smooth hair, soft skin, pink lipstick. Stephanie somehow always looked completely put together, and today was no different. Her white blouse was neatly pressed, while her black pencil skirt looked like a second skin. Bright red heels completed the ensemble, but they were so tall, they made Stephanie's height even more exaggerated. "You sure?" "I was just looking for Julian," Holland said, and right away she realized her mistake. Any nicety on Stephanie's part faded away as she pressed those pink lips together tightly. "Mr. Deskovich is in a meeting," she said. "In fact, he'll be in meetings all day." Something snapped within Holland, deep in her core. Who gave a shit? Seriously. In order to do her job and better serve the company, Holland needed a picture of Deskovich. It needed to be real and recent and good. She no longer cared about his privacy or his abhorrence of the public eye because it didn't matter. He might be the CEO, but he was keeping her from doing her actual job, and she was so over it. "That's perfectly fine," Holland said. She pasted on a very fake smile. "I'll wait." She turned and sat on the little velvet bench that was just outside of Julian's office door. In the 3 years that Holland had worked here, she'd never seen anyone sit here. Whatever. She'd sit here now. Stephanie frowned. Perhaps you didn't understand. He's in meetings? Holland shrugged. Perfectly fine, she repeated. I'm happy to wait until he has a break between them. My question won't take more than a minute, but it is urgent. What's your question? Stephanie asked. Is it something I can help with? Her question wasn't full bitch mode, but she also didn't seem particularly kind or gentle in asking. No, Holland said, I'm fine. As if on cue, the door beside her opened. Holland smelled his aftershave, his cologne, him. Before she turned her head to the right to see the tall, hot-as-fuck man stepping out of his office, she sensed him. He paused just outside his door. He didn't say anything. He just looked at Holland before his gaze slid over to Stephanie. I'm sorry, she said. I told her you didn't have time to meet. Holland was on her feet in a flash. She summoned up all of her courage. Yes, she was pissing off Stephanie, but Holland had pissed off lots of people before. This was important, after all. Mr. Deskovich, she said, I need to speak with you urgently. For a second, she was certain he was going to tell her to fuck off, to get lost, but he didn't. Instead, he turned to Stephanie. Please call James and have him attend the 10 a.m. Portland call on my behalf. But that's in 4 minutes! Stephanie? Julian's voice held no hint of mirth, only fierce tension. Holland watched as Stephanie's entire body relaxed, almost in a trance, and she nodded and went back into her office. Julian looked at Holland and held his door out towards his office door. Won't you please come in? She wasn't sure what she expected the interior of his office would look like. She'd only seen it from a distance before, but Holland stared at the shelves of the books, at the collection of plants in the window, at the 9 ships and bottles on the tops of the bookcases. Have a seat, he said, gesturing at a small table on the right side of the room. Julian's desk was at the back of the office by the window. Why are your shades closed? Holland asked. Have a seat, Julian said again. She wanted to press. It was a beautiful day, after all. Winter was getting the worst of her, and she was trying to keep up a good attitude despite the shitty weather they'd been having. He watched her. She saw him, but she also felt him. Holland felt small beneath his eyes. She listened, and she sat down. She smoothed her skirt and set her phone face down on the table, as was polite. Julian stood at the table beside her. He didn't sit. How may I help you, Holland? I didn't tell you my name, she said. We've met, Holland. They had. Years ago, when she first started at the company, she'd met with him very briefly in a larger meeting. Julian was known for his disdain for technology, which meant he never took meetings remotely by Teams or Zoom. He was a conference call or in-person kind of guy. Everyone knew it. Oh, she said. He waited. I need your picture, she said. Holland summed up every ounce of courage she could to ask him. This wasn't a simple request, she knew. She needed it. The marketing campaign was all coming together, tied up neatly with a little bow. Still, she couldn't pull this whole thing off if she didn't even have a damn picture of him. No. Excuse me? He leaned down, almost to eye level, and whispered the word again. No. A chill shot through Holland. No, a thrill. When was the last time she was this close to a man? Ages. And she wasn't sure if she'd been this close to one like Julian Desnovich ever. His long, dark hair was pulled back neatly in a ponytail. She wondered what it would be like to tug it loose, to see those curls around his face, to run her hands through it. Freckles dotted his nose, giving him a look that was almost innocent. Almost. No, he said a third time. I hear you, she said. Somehow, all the air seemed to be sucked out of the room. Unfortunately, I'm going to have to push back a little. Oh, are you? Was she imagining things, or did Julian seem a bit amused by this? We're preparing the presentation for the 25th anniversary of the company, she said. And I know that you've only been leading it for 5 years, and your uncle led it prior to that until his unexpected passing, but we really need a picture of you. Julian stared at her for a long time. People need to feel connected, she said. As the leader of the company, you're the face of the organization. I'm going to stop you before you stress yourself out any further, Julian said. He squatted down beside Holland, placed his hand on hers, and looked into her eyes. You will never, ever, ever get a picture of me. Leave. He stood and walked to his desk. Flustered, Holland also stood. Somehow, she knew that even if she wanted to argue more, there was no point. She was defeated. An annoyance mixed with embarrassment washed over her. She turned, headed for the door, and paused there for just a second. You know, she said without turning around, for such a horrible man, you have such a beautiful office. It's unfair. She left, slamming the door, certain she would be fired once Julian got over the shock of her outburst. Holland didn't care. She'd been let down by men before. There was Angus in 10th grade and Peter in 12th. Tristan at university had let her down repeatedly for 4 damn years. But since graduation, the only person who let her down was her stepdad, Rob. And now Julian. Stephanie appeared in her office doorway as Holland flew past, rushing to the elevators. She stabbed at the down button, wished it would come faster, and hurried inside. Then, instead of returning to her desk on the 3rd floor, Holland pressed the button for the lobby. She was going home.